Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description, to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 6 of Peacock's Miss Davis, entitled Allison Treasures, A Southern California Story. I ain't even about to try to, I can't make sense of the title. I almost think, and this is like, I feel like this is like arrogant audience member behavior. There's part of me that feels like they're trolling us with the episode titles, like they're fucking with people who analyze the episode titles, because I just can't, I cannot make sense of this. I just can't. It's either referencing something I don't know, or it just doesn't make any sense. It's not referencing anything in the episode. I don't know. I can't with the fucking episode titles, man. But I kind of enjoy this because I do feel like they're fucking with me a little bit. But you know, I've been praising this show all season for its pacing and how it'll set up the next mission, then immediately move on to that mission. So you'd think I'd be disappointed that we didn't start this episode with Operation Jonah and the whale yet. But this show is really built up to this episode and us learning what happened with Simone's father. And I, for one, found this episode and that journey to be really entertaining. So this episode opens with another flashback to 3 years ago. Simone's mother, Celeste, has come to the convent because she believes Simone has asked her to come. But no, it was in fact her father, Monty, who sent the letter requesting she come. He called this family meeting because he wants to announce that he's figured out the Lazarus shroud trick, which apparently is some sort of water escape. But he's going to use acid, and he feels it's his job to resurrect magic. And I love this, I'm certain, very intentional use of the word resurrect, given the subject matter of this show. Because Miss Davis has killed it by making it so anyone can simply get her to explain how to do a trick. And, I mean, yeah, I guess if anybody can just ask Miss Davis how to do a trick, the only way to resurrect magic is to do a trick that Miss Davis can't explain. So, it makes sense. And then that also explains why Simone feels that Miss Davis killed her father, because she created the motivation for him to do a trick that put his life at risk. So he wants Celeste to come to the show where he's going to do this Lazarus shroud trick, and she refuses until he says that he's going to sign the divorce papers. And it's at this point that I assume that he must have faked his death, because he very clearly wants her to be there to witness it. And she's less likely to believe it if she hears it third party. She's more likely to believe it if she sees it with her own two eyes. But this show has been subverting my expectations from day one. So from this point on, I came to wonder if we're going to arrive at the father being alive, and if so, will we get there in a unpredictable and or entertaining way? And there's also an interesting question posed in this scene by Monty. He says, if Miss Davis can destroy magic, what's stopping her from destroying this? And when he says this, he kind of like moves his hands as if he's referring to the convent that they're currently at in a literal sense. But I like the idea that Mrs. Davis, an artificial intelligence, could destroy this, being religion in a more, I think, metaphorical sense. So fast forwarding to present day, we learn that Simone's plan is to get the Lazarus shroud suit that her dad used in his trick to protect her from the whale's stomach acid while she's in there retrieving the grail. Now, I have a couple of notes about this sequence of scenes as well. I think it's interesting that, I've been praising this show for getting right next to the next task without wasting time. We ended last episode setting up the whale mission, so I expected this episode to be whale mission. Now this episode ends, and we didn't even start the whale mission yet, but I'm thoroughly satisfied with the time we spent learning about Simone's dad and the progress that we did make towards starting the whale mission. So yeah, a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to the whale mission. But the other thing I want to talk about this sequence of scenes was I was wondering why Simone would want her father's Lazarus shroud suit to protect her from the whale's stomach acid when, if she believes what she's telling us she believes, it didn't protect him from the acid. So why would it protect her? So I liked how they answered that question by showing him knock loose that hose in the animation that Celeste played. Again, attention to detail. That's what separates, again, what I think separates the great shows from the really, really good ones. And that's an example of that. And I love the animation shit in general. Like, in addition to showing us a nicer version of what happened, it also shows us that the suit would have worked had he not knocked that hose loose. And then thirdly, I think I said I had a couple of things. I said I had 2 notes. I have a third one. I must have wrote 2 notes before I was writing out the 2, and I was like, oh, wait, I got a third. And I forgot to update that. But the third thing, I love how Celeste described how the trick went wrong. The show did a great job of making less do more by combining the animation with Celeste's description to force us to imagine what this must have looked like in reality and what this must have looked like for Simone to see. And then I love how her description was very performative, and it was because she didn't even believe it was real. So why would she describe it in a way that's meant to make you feel what it must have felt like? She's describing it in this grandiose kind of way because to her it was a performance. But it made the description that much more grotesque because it's like how you can describe that. How can you describe that in that way? Like, you describe it in that way and it just makes it, for some reason, it just made it seem worse. Like, it's like you're explaining it like performatively and without much emotion or with positive emotion, but you're describing something horrific. So I thought that was awesome. Moving on, Celeste won't give up the shroud because she believes Simone helped fake her father's death and is lying to her, and she's trying to retrieve the shroud for her father. So Simone, Wiley, JQ, and the crew, that works. Sounds like a nice little radio show, devise a heist to steal it. I'm not going to bother describing the details of the heist. It's not important because the heist didn't work. Celeste was a million steps ahead of them, and she, in what felt like an episode of fucking The Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder, they climb out of like this set that she built of her office that was meant to trap them. And she reveals photos of Monty at an ATM that were taken 3 days after a supposed death, but Simone insists that she had nothing to do with this. So after she leaves, after she leaves, she being Simone with Wiley leaving this set, she goes to a chili joint, and there's this great scene with a woman there who acts as a proxy for a conversation between Simone and Ms. Davis. We've already seen this happen multiple times. I also wonder, side note, if they're ever going to have a man serve as proxy between Ms. Davis and Simone. And that's not me requesting that a man be it. It makes sense to have a woman do it. It's a Ms. Davis, whatever. But I'm just curious if they're gonna do it, have a man do it, and if so, what that's gonna be like, and what if they do it, are they gonna be trying to say something by doing that? I don't know. Just a thought I had. Anyway, Simone asked Ms. Davis about her father, and we learned that Celeste asked Ms. Davis if Simone helped him fake his death. And Ms. Davis lied to her and told her that Simone did help him fake his death because users don't respond to the truth. They respond to stuff like that. Stuff that's going to get them motivated and give them something to drive toward. And Simone asks where he is, and whatever Ms. Davis says repulses the woman who's playing the proxy. Simone hears the answer directly. She takes the earpiece and puts it in. We don't hear it, but she reacts very emotionally. And she says thank you to Ms. Davis. And the episode ends with her telling her mother that she did help her fake her dad's death. So now that she's told her, she wants the shroud. And Celeste says that she's supposed to tell her where the father is. Simone says she will after she has the Grail, so Celeste insists on tagging along. And then lastly, we learn that Hans has put a tracker in Wiley's boot, so him and the Sisterhood are making their way to the good old United States, and they are coming for the Grail that Simone does not even have yet. So, I want to close with a couple of thoughts. I haven't gotten too far into the video, but that's because I have some thoughts that I kind of want to delve into a little bit here. And I want to start by talking about this final scene. Well, one of the final scenes, the one between Simone and the proxy at the chili joint. And another thing I loved about that scene was the facial expressions of the woman playing the proxy. Like, she had these moments where she was reciting what Mrs. Davis was saying in the typical kind of like monotone receptionist sort of way, just very dry and but kind of like with that soft, like, oh, I sound like a mother kind of voice. But her face was reacting to the actual words that Miss Davis was saying differently from, what she... So, like, out of her mouth was, like, this kind, soft-spoken, soothing voice, but her face was looking like she didn't, she didn't even know the words that were coming out of her mouth. Like, she's watching them come out, like, what the fuck? Like, I love the face acting that this woman did in this scene. There's a small B-plot here involving Jay and the restaurant that I didn't find particularly interesting this week, but it will likely come to play in one or both of these final 2 episodes. We learned that he doesn't know what goes on outside of the restaurant or what brings people through the door. I don't believe either of those things, and I still think he's lying about a ton, just like Miss Davis is, which would be an interesting parallel, wouldn't it, between religion and science, that both the religious figurehead of this show and the entity that represents science are both lying to a nun. I think that would be pretty funny, and I think it's probably pretty... I'm not gonna say it's safe to say that there's no one behind the door in the restaurant. God very well may be behind that door, or some version of God, but if there's nothing behind the door, then Jesus has been lying this whole time. What an asshole this Jesus guy is, right? We also learned that people can come in there while they're... Pray for me, Jay. That people can come in there while they're having sex, because they can't come in there while they're having sex. When that happens, they're still out in the real world. But they can enter this venue, this restaurant, while they're having sex, but they can't see him unless they say his name. And I love how when she says his name, he asks her where she is right now. And when she says she's with Wiley, it kind of like jolts her back into getting ate out. And I thought, oh, that's nice. I feel like that would, like, if you are receiving oral pleasure, I feel like it would take away from that if you close your eyes and, like, had what felt like a very real conversation with Jesus. I feel like I'm going limp if that happens. But anyway, here's something that kind of irritated me about this episode. During the heist, and that's why this video is so short, I don't have to talk about the heist. During the heist, or the heist practice, it was actually during the actual heist, I paused the show, and you have to do it at the perfect time to see Celeste's password on the screen, and it ultimately didn't even fucking matter. Like, I thought it was gonna matter, and it didn't. When JQ gives her the list of 3 different options for what the password could be, I paused it again, and I saw that one of the options was Celeste's password. And I was just like, okay, well, I saw ahead of time that the correct password is on this list. And that's all I got for pausing it at the perfect time with a ripoff. So, anyway, again, maybe doing too much, but JQ told his whole backstory about Miss Davis ruining his life and through poker and people, discovering poker games and learning about tilt, all this kind of stuff. And he tells all this stuff completely unprompted after Simone pats him on the shoulder. And I'm just wondering, I feel like I'm doing way too fucking much, but I wonder if she has some sort of she's a nun, right? Like, does she have an ability to get people to, like, open up and share their true feelings if she touches them? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm doing too much, but that was very just like, all right, thanks, Jay. Like, one, the shoulder tap, it stood out to me. Like, I'm like, okay, that was, I don't know, why'd she do that? And then he immediately just starts spilling his guts. Like, I don't know, man. I might be doing too much, but I might not be. I'm not sure where they're going with this whole will they, won't they thing with Wiley and Simone having like actual intercourse sex and Jay not caring, but I'm surely not interested in it. Like, at least not yet. I there's a part of me that feels like the topic of Simone and Wiley having sex and how that pertains to Jay and how he feels about it, there's a part of me that feels like that's probably going to be the aspect of this show that's not going to get a satisfying ending. I don't know if it's been like this, but I noticed in this episode for the first time that the subtitles, and I watch everything with subtitles, the subtitles capitalize Miss Davis pronouns just like the Bible does with like God. So like if you're reading the Bible and it says, you know, God spoke from up high and he saith to thee, or whatever the fuck, he is going to be capitalized, right? And I'm sure you guys have seen that everywhere. When they do that, when they say he referring to Miss Davis, or she referring to Miss Davis on here, or her, they capitalize she or her. And I don't know if they've been doing that, but I noticed it in this episode and I thought that was interesting. And then lastly, you know, we've been hearing this redirect 1042 Sandy Springs thing this whole time. I feel like it's been mentioned anytime Simone's brought up her mother while talking to Ms. Davis via proxy. And we hear it again this week. Nothing comes of it. But that's got to be the address for where her dad is right now, right? Right? But the only thing is, what did Ms. Davis say as an answer to that question that repulsed the proxy so much? Yeah, I'm curious how the redirect 1042 Sandy Springs is going to come into play. I feel like that's going to be tied into where her dad is at, but I guess we'll see. We'll likely see next week. I will talk to you guys next week for episode 7, which is the penultimate episode. I don't know if this is, I was going to say of season 1. I don't know if this is meant to be one season. I don't know if it's meant to be, you know, if they're going to get more, if it's going to be renewed or whatever. But there's 2 more episodes left in this season. I'll see you guys next week to talk about episode 7. And until then, peace.